call. So, I am Jordan. I am from Tallgrass. You can call me Jordan Tallgrass. Just don't call me anything else. So, they told me to talk about myself before. By the way, I'll just start off by saying, if you were at who was at the last beer school I spoke at? About January, about last year? I know you were there. You're hard to miss. So I was coming off the flu then. Only a couple hours off, so things were still shooting out both ends. Things got a little wily. Yeah, I just put that image in your head right before we drink some beer. I'm all right with that. See, that's the other thing I was going to get to. Last time people egged me on to be more vulgar than Steve Kreider from Second Shift, which I obviously did. Now that I don't have that challenge anymore, I'll just be myself, which I might still be a little vulgar, but it'd be okay. So, how did I get into beer? Well, I am the St. Louis rep. I'm from St. Louis. Not originally. I'm from Vandalia, Illinois, which none of you have any idea where that's at. Apparently she does. Why? I'm just going to stop right now. Why do you know where Vandalia, Illinois is? Oh, there you go. Okay. My gigabyte city. Gigabyte, that's right, isn't it? Okay. So I'm from Vandalia, Illinois originally. Came to St. Louis about 10 years ago. I've lived in the city. I cover St. Louis, Tennessee, and Southern Illinois for Tallgrass. How did I get to that point is a question people ask me a lot because everybody wants this job, even though they don't know. It's just a lot of jockeying emails and hanging out with cool dudes like Brian Adams. I was working an insurance job, and it was the first job that I took. I didn't sell insurance. I wasn't an insurance salesman. I was a special project manager. It was a stupid title. So anyway, I was working that job. First job I got offered out of high school. It was 2008. Economy just went into the shitter. Took it. Had good pay, whatever. Decided I was not going to be a desk jockey for the rest of my life, even though I did it for 5 years. So in that time, I had some disposable income, and I lived in Central West End at the time, and I was driving out to Earth City. So every Friday, I would stop at Wine and Cheese Place, which I'm sure some of you are familiar with, and I'd buy 50, 60, 70, depending on how much I wanted to drink that week, $100 in beer. Of beers that I'd never had before. Did that for a few years, started to know a lot about beer, and so, like I said, I decided I didn't want to be a desk jockey anymore. So I started looking around to figure out what my way out was. So I was looking on Craigslist one day, and ITAP, which at the time was only in Chesterfield, which I did not want to drive out to, was hiring because they were opening the Soulard location. So I sent an email that said, I don't look good in a bikini, I don't know how to make a pina colada, but I do know about every beer style and what glass they go into. Ended up getting hired almost on the spot through the email. Barely had to do one interview, which, by the way, they told me later on I was hired after the interview because before the interview I drank 2 20-ounces of an 8% beer before my interview. So have some balls, everybody, when you go into some place like that. So I got that job, started working there on the weekends while I was still doing the insurance thing, so it was a lot of work. It was hard work to get here. I was working weekends, did that for about 4.5 years, and then little store advertised that they were going to open in St. Louis, Fields Foods. Has anybody heard of that? Do you buy beer there? You're welcome. I did that beer set. When they opened, I decided what was going in. I made sure that you didn't have 20 doors of Bud Light to look at, and brought in all this crazy awesome stuff. Did that for about 6 months. Almost went to work for a distributor, which is a great job, but I ended up getting picked up by Tallgrass. So that's how I ended up where I was, or where I am, rather. So about the do you have a question already? They don't make it anymore. It's actually, it caused a bit of a rift, I found out later. So Brooklyn Brewery, in New York, and Schneider-Weiss had made that beer called the Schneider Brooklyner. Did anybody ever have that beer? It was an 8% Hefeweizen. Apparently it was supposed to be just made one time, and that was what Brooklyn Brewery thought anyway. I found this out from a Brooklyn rep later. And Schneider-Weiss continued to make the beer and sell it in the United States for like 2 years after that. I'm not even a Hefeweizen guy, but that Hefeweizen was awesome. It was an 8% Hefeweizen. It tasted delicious. Yeah, so that was the beer. Good question, though. Let's give out a beer. By the way, I'm just going to give out beers for random things throughout the night. So give out my first one, give you a sweet tooth, which you'll sample later. So Tallgrass, the brewery itself, was formed in 2007. It's a kind of old for a craft brewery. I mean, it's not Schlafly old or anything like that, but it's not the new kid on the block. So it started, let me take a drink real quick. Jeff Gill is our founder who, funny enough, doesn't have the exact same story that I do, but he has kind of a similar story. The way he tells it, he was a geologist, I think working for an oil company or something, which apparently this is a thing now. I found some other breweries that have been started by geologists. So it's probably that technical brain thing. Anyway, he was having dinner with some friends at Qdoba because he loves Qdoba. Sorry, that's an inside joke because we always have to eat Qdoba at the brewery. He describes that he was having dinner with a guy that had a PhD in pebbles and a guy that had a PhD in dirt. And as he was eating his queso, he had kind of like, what the fuck am I doing with my life moment? Kind of like I did as well. So he's talking to his wife later about it, and his wife, now that I've gotten to know her, she's a patient soul. Thank you, sir. I'm going to stop the brewery, talk for a minute. We'll get back to that because I've been told when the beer comes out I need to talk about the beer, which is Top Rope. We're doing Top Rope first? Okay. Top Rope, this is our new IPA. It's only been out for a couple of weeks. It's kind of, so the newer IPAs are, they're that juicier style. This is not that. This is kind of a throwback to that straightforward Northwestern. You smell it. It's piney. It's resiny. It gets all up in your face and your nostrils and just, it's got that pungent smell that I love, like an IPA should taste. So you really get that in there. So how did it become Top Rope? So who's familiar with 8-Bit? 8-Bit is one of our flagship beers. It was named that because we're nerds. We like to play video games, have fun. It kind of taps into that schema, of having fun as a kid. Top Rope is kind of the same realm, but we wanted to do something different, obviously. So this beer actually took a whole lot of watching Ric Flair, Ultimate Warrior videos, rants, things like that. A lot of walking around the brewery going, woo! We actually wanted to put on the can, so if you don't have the can in your hand, the beer, it says on there, let me tell you something, brother, this beer's got hops. That was kind of poking fun at the whole IPA-like descriptions on cans and bottles sometimes now. They've got this very elaborate description, and we're just like, this beer has hops. You like hops? Drink it. Anyway, I digress. The Ric Flair, we wanted to be the man, you got to beat the man on the can. Until we found out just to start discussions for that, it was $30,000 in licensing fees. Ric Flair owns that. I think he owns Woo too, but we had a discussion earlier. Is it just the woo, or can you say woo? Like woo? Is there what's the extent of the woo? Anyway, so Top Rope, and this is the story that we tell distributors and things like that, the PG story. It's also because when we get drunk, we like to wrestle. There's been more than one broken rib at Tallgrass. We don't have an HR department. And broken rib was done by the founder on a regional manager in a hotel room hallway at 3 o'clock in the morning. And he literally said, coming down off the top rope. And so that happened. But yeah, that's kind of how the beer came to be what it is. So it's a great beer, but it's great marketing as well. So it's 80 IBUs. I'm sure you guys are wondering about that. 6% alcohol, dry hopped with Amarillo. Besides that, it's Nugget, Centennial, and just go to my cheat sheet here. I used to have them memorized, but when you guys get in front of me, I get nervous. Crystal and Amarillo are the dry hops. Nugget, Centennial, Amarillo, and Columbus are the bittering agents. Anybody have any questions about Top Rope while I'm talking about it? Do you guys enjoy it? What do you think? Nice. So I'll go back to doing snippets about the brewery, trying to remember where I was at. He had that moment, and he started talking to his wife, and his wife said, well, what do you want to do with your life? Probably, in jest, not thinking that he would take it that seriously. And he said, well, I want to open a brewery. So she's like, all right, do it. And he did. So they moved to Manhattan because it's in the Flint Hills, which is the non-flat part of Kansas. There's some hills in Kansas. I kind of call it the Little Black Hills. But apparently the water source there is great for beer, especially kind of minerally beers like our original pub ale. Anyway, they moved there 2007, started the brewery with pub ale. The rest is kind of history. Started coming out with great beers. We came out with 8-Bit in 2010. I think Buffalo Sweat, which we'll taste later, came out around 2009, 8 or 9-ish, somewhere around there. I wasn't around then. So, anybody have any questions in general about the brewery, things like that?
What does everybody think of IPA? Sorry to go backwards.
Yeah, you can go backward. You can go forward, sideways.
80
That was on purpose, yeah. We didn't want it to be too sweet with the too much malt, but if anybody has any questions about that, sure. Every beer we make, we want to make well balanced. Even Ethos, our old IPA, was 110, and you wouldn't know it. Oh, I guess I should have gone to that. Thank you for putting me back on talking points. So we originally started, it was, sometimes I lose track and I start talking about stupid shit. We started in what was basically an old limo garage. It was a production brewery only. We were, by the end of it, which we just moved last year. So when I did the last beer school, we hadn't even moved yet. We moved last year around February, March. We were literally in this limo garage. If you drove up to it, you would not think it was a brewery. We were production only. There wasn't really a tap house. You could go in and take tours on Saturdays. But we had two 15-barrel fermenters running 24/7, 365, just to pump out our three mainstream beers, 8-Bit, Ethos, and Buffalo Sweat at the time. So we moved kind of outside of Manhattan, over by Fort Riley, if anybody's an armed service person or things like that. And we took an old Verizon call center. It's basically shaped like a baseball diamond. It's 60,000 square feet. The same people that renovated it are the people that did the new Belgium expansions. So now we're 60,000 square feet. We run 150-barrel fermenters, bright tanks, 50-barrel fermenters. We have the capacity right now to go up to, I believe, 70,000 barrels without construction, and we could go up to about 120 with minimal construction, basically just dropping in extra tanks. Good question, though. Let's give you a beer for that. Let's give you a top rope. We're drinking top rope. There you go, sir. I get to talk, I don't get to drink, so I'm just going to sit here and drink. Anybody else have any questions about the brewery itself? Sir? How many what? I don't know. I could take a guess, though. I think I asked this one time, and they gave me an estimate. I believe, so I know on the sales team there's about 10 of us, and then as far as operations, everything all in, I believe we're somewhere around 60, 70 employees. So, yeah, around there. Yes, sir. States, that's a funny question. So when we opened the new brewery, we started expanding states pretty quickly. We're still major Midwest regional, so we like to keep that right down the middle of the Midwest. So last year we took over Tennessee, which would have been our 15th state, which I took over. We opened, I'm sorry, that was our 14th state. Then we just opened Indiana at the beginning of this year. Then we opened Colorado, actually at the beginning of April, which I got to go out and do, and Colorado was fun. We're getting ready to open a couple more. So by the end of this year, we'll be 18, possibly more. I saw another question somewhere in this general vicinity. Yes, sir. No, we sold it. We do have the Cadillac of pilot systems, though. I'm told it's very nice. Very nice, Clark. I'm not sure what it is, but I know as far as the brewer lingo goes that it's only a 5-barrel, I'm pretty sure. No, I'm sorry, it's a 10-barrel. But the 15 barrels we sold to, I'm trying to think of the name of the brewery, but I can't grab it at the moment, so I won't make everybody wait. But we didn't sell them actually until we were in Tennessee. I know we actually think we sold them to a brewery in Tennessee. But yeah, so like Raspberry Jam that you'll taste coming up actually started on the pilot system, as with a lot of the beers. I think I saw another hand come up somewhere. Maybe not. So I'll talk a little bit about, because a lot of people ask about our cans and our designs and things. She's bringing around half pipe right now. I won't talk about necessarily the beer taste itself. But if you see like the designs on the cans, so we have an in-house art director we don't contract out. He's full-time for us. So we took him from Topps Trading Card Company, which is funny. But when you hear what he did, you'll understand. So Neil Camera, if you actually pull out your phones and Google him right now, you can find some of his work. He was one of the lead creative directors for Garbage Pail Kids. He's done freelance work for Marvel, DC Comics. He worked on the wacky packages when they came back around. He's not old enough to work on them in the 60s. But when they came back, so obviously you're familiar with wacky packages, things like that. But no, he's uber nerd. If he goes to Comic-Con, things like that, he gets swarmed. But yeah, if you Google it, Neil Camera, you'll find some like his $250 Garbage Pail Kid original sketch, stuff like that. So we're getting ready to drink Half Pipe here. This is one of our newest beers, and one of our most fun beers. It's our first sour beer that we've done. It's not wild fermentation, so there's no bread in it. There's none of that. This actually replaces our summer seasonal Halcyon. So any of you remember Halcyon wheat? Nobody? Good. I don't. I hope. I'm actually glad. That's good. Goodbye to it. So this is the new summer seasonal. This is a tart pale ale, which sounds weird at first. It's a twice kettle soured pale ale, American pale ale, that's then been dry hopped with Cascade. The story kind of behind this beer was we wanted to do something edgier, summer seasonal, that no one else was doing. It's also kind of an introduction to sours. So who here has had sour beers before? Awesome. So this is not going to be super tart. This is meant to be that crushable, drinkable summer seasonal that's still tart. So if you're a fan of sour beers, you'll enjoy it as something you can drink a lot of. It's at a great price point. You can pick it up at the grocery store. But you can also turn your friends who aren't sour beer drinkers into sour beer drinkers. So it's got that nice acidity to it. When you take a whiff, which we just drank top rope, so your palate's probably wrecked, you'll get that Cascade dry hopping off of it, though, especially after you drink raspberry jam or something fruity. You'll definitely get that flavor to it. But it's a beautiful beer, in my opinion. I've been drinking a lot of it. So does anybody have any questions about Half Pipe at all? I don't know who is first. Let's go with the ladies first. As far as like I started on that. Sorry. Thank you. This is why I have people ask questions, because I get off track. So when we wanted to make the beer, like I said, we wanted to make something edgier. And when we drank it, we were kind of like, it's definitely tastes like summer. I mean, you could slam that on a hot day. So we wanted to associate it with summer, things like that. We were like, it's not traditional. So it's not traditional like summer like baseball. It's more traditional like, kind of the extreme sports. So that's why we went with the half pipe, the totally rad, shred the gnar. Got the skateboarder on it, but it's for any, it's kind of associated with any of those extreme sports or things like that. People being outside. And even on the can, there's a little blurb that says, this beer is for individuals who get air and grind on rails and curbs and alleys and burbs. This beer is for you. So that's kind of where the idea behind that beer came from. So, well, a lot of the 14-year-olds like my age they're drinking now. So, gotta appeal to your market. I saw a question. There it was, maroon. Oh, same thing? Somebody else looked like. There you go. Lactobacillus, sorry. Thank you again. It's lactobacillus, which is basically the same thing that's in yogurt, and I'm sure if you're familiar with sour beers, you're familiar with that process. It's also found in a lot of other gross things we won't talk about. I actually learned this after we made this beer, but humans produce lactobacillus too. It's in your stomach. But yeah, it's kind of like drinking kimchi. I'm sorry, that's actually me. My dog needs his medicine. Hopefully my girlfriend gave it to him. I'm sure she did. She's good about it. She is. Any other questions about half pipe?
What do you guys say? I'll make it this way. Anybody in the room that doesn't like sours at all, but thinks it's interesting and drink this? One person, maybe two. It's terrible.
Who thinks it's terrible?
Who thinks it's absolutely horrible?
Do you not like sour beers? Then yeah, that's fine. Since we're going backwards, I just want to go back to whenever you were talking earlier. I forgot that this is beer school, and when you were up here talking about if you think you're going to graduate, you're probably going to graduate, and I was like, that's not really how college works. So I wouldn't take that advice if you were at Washington. I thought so, and then I was like, oh, we're at beer school. I'm an idiot.
That's not the advice I give to actual college students. I usually just tell them to drop their class.
Yeah, drop the class, drink more beer. You can get a job like this. Whatever. Exactly. I feel like there was one more story about half pipe that I forgot to tell. But yeah. Since I know you guys, if anybody has any questions about the ingredients of the beers, sometimes I gloss over that. I do have a lot of it written down just to remind myself, because I know a lot of you are interested in that. So this is a 20 IBU beer. It's 5%. It's hopped with Centennial Crystal, and like I said, it's dry hopped with Cascade, and then twice kettle soured. It's actually blended as well. So if anybody wanted any of that Uber info, you know, I know you're taking notes over there.
Can you tell us how it gets blended?
Well, they blend, so they make the pale ale that's a little bit less sour without the lacto, and then they blend it with the already lacto-soured pale ale, so it gives it that, kind of tones it down a bit. Like we said, it's more that accessible sour for people to drink, so that brings it down to that level where it needs to be. Yeah. Sometimes I do this at the beginning of shows. I'm going to hold off on that for a second. Yes, sir. Blending is pretty popular among sours. I mean, that's all the great sour makers are really known as great blenders. So like Cantillon, Dry Fontaine, and of course our own side project. They're known as being great blenders. So usually things are blended. Some things aren't blended, but for the most part, I think they do a lot of it.
Almost all the big sour brewers in the country, they all have sort of their base beers, and then they add things to them that mix the bases to create something completely different. So, I think almost all of them are blended somehow.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, I think all of them are. I think you're right. So, moving on. I love these Justin Bieber mic things because they leave my hands free for activities. One of those activities we like to do at Tallgrass is a little thing called shotgunning. So, if anybody needs a tutorial, does anybody want a tutorial on how to shotgun? So, I apologize. I've noticed the 12-ounce cans, the 16 ounces aren't as bad. I've never done a raspberry jam, so we're going to see on this one. We'll see. Do what? Yeah, come up here. If you want to shotgun with me, shotgun. Okay, wait a minute. Hold on. Are you a clean shotgunner? How clean are you? I mean, I'm pretty clean besides, I don't know how it's going to squirt out whenever it's coming. Okay, come on up. Get up here. We might need one more. You going to do the key method? I'm a knife guy, but you can use whatever method you want. So I usually aim for, on our 8-bits, we actually have a press start button on them. That's where I do that one. Like I said, I've never done a raspberry jam. One of the fun things about this can, if they'll let you see an empty one or something, I'll talk a little bit more about the branding and stuff on that, but it has the Scooby-Doo mystery bus on it. I must be like right in the wind here. Let's move up front. They got theirs open pretty good. Let's see how mine does. You know what? I might go your key method as well. What's that? Oh, there's my sample. Thank you. Thank you, sir. The key might be less messy. We'll see. There we go. That was nice. Got that nice pop to it.
Don't forget the instructions for us.
Oh, okay. So you want to tilt it about like this because then you get that air bubble perfectly right there. So you want that air bubble. That's where you're going in. Otherwise, you're going to get a face full of beer. And like I said, no one likes a messy shotgunner. I've seen some messy ones, and they're not pretty. So, you guys got it all ready to go?
Yep, on you.
Let's cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers to Tallgrass. Ready, guy? Woo! Woo! Thanks, guys. Thanks for being a good sport. I know. I shotgun a sour, but never raspberry jam. That was actually the best part. Is here in a couple minutes, you're going to get the Justin Bieber mic burp, which is actually the best part. Actually, the last time I did one, we have Grizz. It's a 9.5% double IPA. I did one about a crowd this size in front of the major brands meeting because the thing is, if you're going to be the bear, be the Grizz. So there it is. Oh, there's my beer. Hold on a second.
It definitely wasn't a first, but it's been quite a long time.
No, there's been some beer shotgun on here. That was pretty clean though. I was proud. We might need a little towel over here. There was a little bit of spillage. At least it was over here, not on the rug. That was a 4%. We're good. There we go. Okay. Any questions about how to shotgun a craft beer? Any? No? You could basically do it. Actually, my best advice to you, the one I did I feel sorry for them. It sounds weird, but warm is actually better for me. Cold, it's a lot. So sorry, guys, I didn't. Well, one of you got a warm one, but one of you got a cold one. Who got the cold one? Sorry about that. You for a little brain freeze? Yeah. Okay. So now I don't have a beer to hold while I'm talking about it. Damn it. Son of a bitch. So raspberry jam was a recipe that was originated actually on that pilot brew system, and we served it in our new tap house. So in addition to opening the new brewery, the 60,000 square foot one, which you still can't tour because Kansas is fucking weird. Sorry, just throw it in there. It is. You can go down to the tap house in downtown Manhattan now, which has a lot of different brews that we're piloting and working on. So this started there. It started as a berlinerweiss, Ich bin ein Berliner. Which is a sour wheat style of beer formed in Germany. And we made some syrups to go with it. They're traditional Woodruff. We did some raspberry, a couple other things. Raspberry just blew up. Everybody was drinking the raspberry syrup, so we're like, well, let's take it on tour. So we came up with the name Raspberry Jam. And our marketing guy is a big music nerdy guy. Brought in some psych albums. He's like, Raspberry Jam sounds like a psychedelic 60s band or something. So he brought in some albums. He didn't tell me what albums. I would assume King Crimson, stuff like that, for our art director, Neil. And he kind of came up with that. So it has that Jimi Hendrix psychedelic vibe to it. And like I said, it's actually, if you look on the UPC on it, you want to pass that around? Is that an empty can over there? If you could just pass that around. The UPC label on it is actually the Scooby-Doo mystery bus, or that's what I call it. It's more like a VW bus. The UPC, so if you spin it around and look at the UPC, that comes because that was Neil, our art director's personal touch, because he's a deadhead. So if you're a deadhead, this is the beer for you, I suppose. But any questions in general about raspberry jam? About the Berliner Weiss style? How many people have had? Yes, sir. Oh, thank you. That's actually, see, I love you guys. You guys are really helping me out because I forget. Yeah. Yeah, you do get a beer. I don't have a raspberry jam, but we'll give you a half pipe. How about that? Yeah, all the beers I give out from now on have to be shotgunned right now. 16 ouncer is not bad. It just takes a few seconds longer. No, it comes from raspberry puree. So that actually, I'm glad you brought that up. This beer has been out for 2 or 3 weeks now. So we got a call on our sales call about a month ago that was like, so raspberry jam tastes awesome. We put about 70 pounds of raspberry puree in it. Didn't turn pink. Apparently it caused the brewers a WTF moment. It was coming out and they were like, it's not pink. Where'd all the raspberry puree go? Which led me to wonder, I think a lot of mass-produced raspberry Berliner Weisses and stuff like that actually have different colors to it. So there's a certain other brewery that's got a raspberry Berliner Weiss out now. Won't say the name, its founding father. But it's got a definite pink color to it. And I'm wondering if that was actually a dye, just to give that idea. I don't know for sure, so. I mean, it was straight raspberry puree that went in there because we literally wanted it to taste like raspberry jam. Mm-hmm.
I got another can.
Sure.
She got it for me. And I can't find the VW bus or anything, so.
Did we shotgun right through the hole? Did you get a shotgun one? Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. No, it's you got to look a little harder. Do you have a question? I thought someone else raised their hand. Raspberry jam, so it's just been out. You talking about off-premise? I mean, obviously you can drink it here tonight on draft, the fine Ciceros. Off-premise, you'll see it, at your major craft beer seller, Friar Tuck's, Total Wine, some Schnucks, things like that. If they have, a lot of our other beers, they should have it. Yeah. I swear I saw another hand out there. Yep. Yeah. 4.3 of IBUs. There you go. I'm probably going to give you a beer for that one. So Berliner styles, the point is it's not hopped. There is no hops in that beer at all. Well, actually I think there's a slight bit because there was a certain state, I'm trying to remember it now. Oh, we're getting ready to open up Texas. And Texas defines a beer, it has to have hops. So I think they might be adding a slight bit of hops to it. But right now, at the moment, there is 0 hops in that beer. It's 0 IBU, 0 hops.
When they first started making ale, when they stopped, they've been making ales, and they started adding hops to beer.
Mm-hmm.
That was where they changed the name to beer.
I mean, every state's got different weird rules. So Texas, apparently, yeah, you have to. Oh, you mean the Reinheitsgebot? Well, I mean, Texas isn't Germany, so I don't know why they're trying to hold on to the Reinheitsgebot. So, what's that? Yeah, Berliner Weiss. I can't talk now. Shotgun a beer and I can't talk. Berliner Weiss style is technically, it's not hoppy at all. It has 0 hops in it. Should have 0 IBUs. There's not bitterness besides the souring agent. So, it's a good question. So that's why you get a beer for it. Any other questions about Berliner Weiss? What? Yes. It's lactobacillus as well, which is, like I said, found in your gut, your sweat, a couple other things. Yogurt, it's the most common one. Yes, sir.
At what point in the process do you add the raspberry puree?
Raspberry is actually added at very late in the process. It's almost like dry hopping. So the stage would be kind of, after the wort and the boil, they add it in there. I think it's actually already sit in the fermenter tank for quite a while, too, before the raspberry gets in, because you really want it to, you don't want it to get strained out or lost in there. You want it to really pop. So, yes, sir.
So do you pasteurize the beer?
Yes, all of it. Well, that's a good question on that one.
I would imagine the raspberry
I'm pretty sure the raspberry jam, don't hold me to this, that's actually a good takeaway for me, so thank you. The raspberry jam beer is not pasteurized, but every one of our beers goes through the centrifuge, so the centrifuge might have had some effect on that. Very good. We'll give you a top rope for that one. Just getting willy-nilly here.
So when it came out, it was this color before the centrifuge?
Yes, so it wouldn't have taken out the color, but that is a good question because I'm not sure if I don't know if it's pasteurized or not, but I know it runs through the centrifuge. So we're passing out Buffalo Sweat right now. How many people have had Buffalo Sweat? It's our most popular beer, probably most of the people in the room, yeah. Story behind that is, so it was one of the early beers that we had. We had the beer recipe. Thank you. I've just got a whole collection of glasses up here. If anybody wants to come up here and slam beers with me. Well, at this point, I don't even know what's what. So, Buffalo Sweat. We had the beer before we had the name. So this was early on. We didn't have a marketing department, anything like that. This is kind of the PG story as well. I don't even know the full X-rated story. I've got another belch coming somewhere. But he had the beer, our founder did. He had quite a few of them and says that looks like something a buffalo would sweat. Yeah, it does. So that kind of became the name. So this is the beer, you get called Buffalo Sweet, things like that. It's our most iconic beer. Most people don't know, though, it's actually a milk stout. It does have lactose sugar in it. That's one of the adjuncts, as well as oatmeal. So it kind of gives it that double creaminess effect. So it's also pretty light to medium bodied, which is typical for a milk stout. But you get that nice roasty smell. It's very low. It's 10 IBUs, 5% alcohol. Very drinkable. You can put it on ice cream. You can do you can drop whiskey in it and do a buffalo bomb. We're not going to do that. None of that. You can do all that. But yeah, it's got flaked oats and oatmeal in it. Or I'm sorry, flaked oats and lactose sugar. So we don't do any nitro beers at this point, but it almost gives it that creaminess effect of having nitrous. We did have an issue actually up until recently, and this was kind of a joke at the last beer school I did, I know. We did have a team of men working on getting better head on Buffalo Sweat. We succeeded. Actually, it was our new brewer. He came to us recently. He's a veteran. He's brewed for Lagunitas, Shipyard, Victory, all sorts of breweries. He, watched the process, and any great brewer would. He's like, well, you change temperatures at this transfer. I don't know what transfer it was. It was way too technical and nerdy for me. But in one of the transfers, they changed the temperature, and he said, don't change the temperature. Keep it at the same temperature in that transfer from this tank to that tank, and you'll keep your head. All of a sudden, Buffalo Sweat gives better head. There you go. Any questions about Buffalo Sweat, though, in general? Only hop in that one is Glacier. Nobody? No questions on Buffalo Sweat? Yes, sir. That one was not. He tweaked it recently. It used to be an older design, and we kind of made everything more cohesive with our branding. But this was before his time. It's one of the few beers we still have that he didn't do the original artwork for. But yeah, like I said, it got tweaked, so you'll still see some like tap handles around town and things like that that have the old Buffalo Sweat logo, which is basically just a different font, things like that, not that kind of kooky looking font that we do. So, any other questions? Yeah. We do. So this past year we did some variations of it since it's our most popular beer. Well, the most popular being Vanilla Bean Buffalo Sweat, which we did at the last beer school in a firkin form because we do a lot of firkins. Vanilla Bean is our winter seasonal, so it runs, and I'll give you this for asking that. Vanilla Bean runs November through February, and it's our most popular seasonal at this point. And this last year, we started doing what's called the Explorer Series. So that's actually what the you'll see the Sweet Tooth and the Raspberry Jam is Explorer Series stamped on top, and it'll be our 12-ounce cans. It's kind of a fun experimental way for us to put out a beer every few months. It's different. Sometimes they're high ABV. They're not always necessarily. So we did last year Bourbon Barrel Buffalo Sweat, which was interesting because we aged it in bourbon barrels for about 2 months. And we didn't want to alienate the Buffalo Sweat drinkers being our most popular beer. So we didn't really want to change the recipe, and most people don't realize that bourbon barrels only impart maybe a point of alcohol, depending on how long you leave in there, things like that. So Buffalo Sweat itself is a 5% beer. So the version that came out, the Bourbon Barrel Buffalo Sweat, was about, according to the government, it was 5.8 because that's when we sent it in. I would say it drank closer to 6, which most people aren't going to notice, a couple decimal points. Yeah, we did the Bourbon Barrel Buffalo Sweat, and then we did another one later in the year that was the Vanilla Bean, which is a lot of adjectives. So we did Bourbon Barrel Vanilla Bean Buffalo Sweat with cinnamon. We tried playing around with different names for that beer because obviously it's a lot of adjectives. But we didn't want to lose the Buffalo Sweat name, we didn't want to lose the Vanilla Bean, and we didn't want to lose the fact that it was aged in bourbon barrels or had cinnamon. So what do you do besides put them all together? Besides call it supercalifragilisticexpialidocious? I don't know. But yeah, it was a variation that we did as well. And like I said, we do a lot of firkins with Buffalo Sweat, we don't have one this time. Like I said, we did last time. Who's familiar with firkins? We're doing real beer. We don't carbonate it. It's all naturally carbonated, put in there. But Buffalo Sweat is a great base beer for firkins. That's actually how Vanilla Bean Buffalo Sweat came about. It was one of our first firkins that we ever did. We just threw vanilla beans into it, and it tasted amazing. So last year we did a peppermint Vanilla Bean Buffalo Sweat. I've had blueberry, French toast Buffalo Sweat was great. I'm trying to think. Root beer. It didn't taste. Sorry, there was that belch. It didn't taste like Not Your Father's root beer or anything like that. It was much more. It tasted like Buffalo Sweat, but it had the essence of root beer. So if you ever see a Buffalo Sweat firkin out there advertised by a bar or something, go to it because those things only last for a day and they're delicious. Yes, sir. French toast, I'm not sure what they added into. So those are very small batch. You're talking about just one keg of beer, basically. Not even an entire, the size is 10.8 gallons, or a pin is 5, which is about a 6 barrel. 10's between a half barrel and a 6 barrel. Everything is thrown into the actual firkin, and whatever's in there naturally carbonates while it's in there. So the French toast, obviously they had to add cinnamon. Like we did. Some of them I know what are in them. Like blueberry pancake, we did a blueberry pancake halcyon, which is probably the best that beer ever tasted. That one had almond extract, maple extract, and what was the other one? Something else. Anyway, it tasted just like a blueberry pancake or blueberry pancake batter. So French toast would have been the same process, probably cinnamon, probably some maple extract, things like that. Depending on what. Sometimes you can put real stuff in there. When I say real stuff, like if you do, a blueberry Buffalo Sweat, you can put blueberry puree in there and things like that. When you're getting into that area, sometimes you have to dabble in the extracts to get that flavor. So, any other questions on firkins Buffalo Sweat? Yeah, just get all soggy and clog it up.
about it, is I think we're going to do like a Randall class. You guys know what a Randall is? Yeah. It's basically something that you can, it's like a big tube that you can stick really anything into, and then you take any beer you want and you force it through whatever you stick inside your Randall. So when you said French toast, I was just seeing this Randall stuff with French toast.
That's actually the funny
It
thing about
sounds ridiculous, but you can actually do it. I mean, you literally can put French toast, make it just the same way you would normally, stuff it into the Randall, force the beer through it, and you're done. And actually, you can put anything in it. So I'm working on a class for the summer where we're going to taste like 4 or 5 different beers that have all been forced through a Randall with 4 or 5 different things. So just let you know.
The fun thing about those, I mean, yeah, it's the same kind of similar concepts.
You know, one's actually conditioned on it, one's goes straight through it. But the fun thing is, people, you know, when you go to them, it's a gamble. I mean, that's kind of the fun part of it. They're not always good. I'm not going to lie to you. Sometimes they're really bad. Sometimes they're just okay. I mean, I did our Zombie Monkey Porter through banana and peanut butter cups. It was supposed to be the Elvis Zombie Monkey, you know, Zombie Elvis, whatever. So we did that through a Randall because we had done actually firkins with banana and peanut butter for Zombie Monkey. And the brewers are obviously smarter than I am, which, by the way, if you guys want to know what that's called, it's called a banana hammock, that firkin. Not kidding. It's called a banana hammock. I did PG and did the Zombie Elvis. But I did it with Reese's peanut butter cups. I didn't get cheap. I didn't buy the off-brand. We crushed them up. I put them through a food processor, not even thinking about the fact. Have you ever noticed that like peanut butter cups are kind of oily? So the beer was like kind of had this film of like oil on it. And then I found out that when like brewers do peanut butter beers, they don't use real peanut butter. They use like peanut butter powder extract, again, where you have to use extract. So lesson learned. They're not always great. You've had firkins and things like that aren't great. You know, we might have done a bacon. Bacon would it wouldn't be real bacon because again you'd get that greasy weird film. But basically you just the smoke flavor, liquid. I think you could get it with some liquid smoke, some little bit of salt, things like that. Might be something to explore. Be interesting. You know, there are some bacon fests and things like that around the country. So. Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, 0 head. Can't do it. They actually
The oils. Oh, yeah, because, people...
Yeah, actually, 40 pounds of smoked bacon per batch. Yeah. I don't remember how big batches were. And they thought that the bacon would be awesome after being in this beer for all this time. They said it was like meat spat. Yeah.
Ew.
It had no flavor. He said my dog would eat roadkill and he wouldn't touch it.
Wow. Thank you, sir. It makes sense that you said it didn't have any head retention at all. I mean, the immediate thing I think of is people that don't like head on their beer. Whenever they get a beer with head on it, they wipe the oil off their nose and stick their finger into it, which in and of itself is gross to me. But yeah, the oil I guess would kill the head immediately. Yeah. I saw several people after I did that touch their nose to see if it was oily. like I saw you back there. There's oil on your nose. It's natural. Yeah. Questions? Life? So we're moving on to Sweet Tooth. Like I said, Sweet Tooth was another beer that was kind of experimental for us. We do these and do like one and done. Raspberry Jam will actually be throughout the summer, but this one was one of those like one and done limited releases. So if you see it, you may not see it again. Anyway, you'll see from the packaging on it, it's very Willy Wonka-esque. That was on purpose. The brewers had brewed up a beer, and we're big fans of Belgians. Not necessarily me personally, but the brewery itself. We actually had a discussion about that beforehand. But this beer is delicious. They brewed a Belgian Dark Strong on our pilot system called Houndstooth, and started messing with different adjuncts. So one of the adjuncts they'd come up with was like a salted caramel flavor, because it's already kind of got that that big dark caramel strength to it. It's probably one of the more interesting beers you'll definitely try tonight, if not in general. It's you take a whiff of it, and that Belgian yeast just smacks you in the face. It's like Bazooka Joe, like someone just blew a big bubble of Bazooka Joe right into your face. Then you get that the caramel. There's not actually any caramel in it. There is adjuncts as far as salt, brown sugar, and Belgian dark candied sugar, but there is no caramel besides the caramel malts. So it's you get that sweetness. It's not necessarily cloying. We think it's a very well-balanced beer for what it is. You know, being named Sweet Tooth, it's very well-balanced. And then the salt, it's not like salty, but like right at the end on your palate, the salt just kind of comes in and dries it all up. You really don't taste the 9.2% alcohol at all. It hides very well. Ooh. I have to shotgun for the next session too. So this one, just the end of the night with a bang. But yeah, the salt comes in, dries it up, and just it's very interesting. And as it warms up, I mean, sit there and hold it a little bit. Some of that like just interesting oaky vanilla. There's not actually any oak on it. Sorry, I said oaky, but it's like that vanilla flavor really comes out in it as it gets warmer, things like that. But yeah, it was a really fun beer for us to make. It's been very well received. Beer Connoisseur, I think, give it like a 95, things like that. So, questions about Sweet Tooth? Yeah, I just smelled it and I was like, actually, it changes every time for me. I get the Bazooka Joe, the bubble gum, but I'm getting some like clove banana in there. So you know, it's funny. It's been out for a month or two now. It may just be developing on its own. You know, you never know where that's going to go. Things like that. One of the funny stories. I'll get your question in a minute. Just so you guys know, one of the other reasons it was like the Willy Wonka beer. So I don't know if it was a brewer or who, but someone described it when they drank this as the beer that an Oompa Loompa would drink after an 18-hour shift. Hoo-ah!